My goodness, is it Thursday already? That means it's time for the Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, CW. Thank you so much for listening. Make sure to hit that bell on YouTube and subscribe to the podcast on your favorite podcasting app, or just subscribe on YouTube. And don't forget to tell a friend about the show, this 10-minute wrestling show. Today, we're talking about gimmicks that have lasted way too long. It's a point of contention in wrestling, I think. People think that, if your gimmick is good, you should stick with it. And there's countless professional wrestlers that have proven that point. Once they find a gimmick, they stick with it. It lasts them their entire career, and that's what they do. I mean, Ric Flair's been the same guy forever. Stone Cold Steve Austin changed to Austin 316 in that promo and never looked back, and it works. He doesn't have to change it ever again. The Rock, once The Rock found The Rock, it stuck. Triple H has had, not many reinventions. He's always been himself. But again, I don't think Triple H ever really had a character. He was just a guy. Yeah, he didn't really have a gimmick, did he? He was just a guy. Sometimes he wore suits. Sometimes he wore, denim. But he didn't have like a character. He had entrance music. All right, I'm dwelling on Triple H. But the reason this came up is because I was watching the Chris Van Vliet episode with Chris Jericho, who is known for switching up his gimmick quite a bit. And I think he uses it as a point of pride in himself, that he knows when his gimmicks are getting stale and when he has to move on to something new. Some might argue he moves on to too many new things, but I would say that it is a superpower of his that he recognizes when the trend is changing for his character and he needs to switch it up, right? And he always points to when he came back to WWE and he was, afraid that the Y2J stuff was played out and he had to do something different. He cut all his hair off. He switched his tights. He wanted to change his music, but he couldn't because Vince wouldn't let him. But he told everybody to stop calling me Y2J. And I think that's when he started wearing the big colorful vest or whatever. And then after that, he did like the list, and then he left and he went to AEW, where he's had so many transformations. But it got me thinking. I was like, all right, so in that realm, who's on the opposite end, whose gimmick has stuck around way past its expiration date for whatever reason? And there's, for every Stone Cold, there is a Midian, right? Where the gimmick just doesn't work anymore and you kind of just have it. But I was thinking, at first I thought Kane. Kane's gimmick ran its course the moment he took his mask off, right? The mystique was gone. But he kept holding on to that kind of character. I think when they saw that Corporate Kane wasn't over as much as they thought he would be, as in like not at all, he started putting the mask back on. I remember he used to wear two masks at one point. He had the sort of welder's mask over his Kane mask, which was always goofy to me. He used to put on a wig with the mask to try and generate that same feeling, and it just wasn't there anymore. And for years, honestly, the Kane character just kind of floundered post-mask reveal. And I was a big Kane fan, huge Kane stan. Once the mask came off, I was done, because he wasn't the monster anymore. He was a regular human being. And I did enjoy the act of him being mentally scarred versus physically scarred. I like that storyline. And they did a lot of good stuff right in the months right after he took the mask off. He was wearing the towel and he was kind of crazier and more dangerous. But then it just fizzled out. And then the fact that he kept trying to bring the mask back really hurt that. But for all of that, Kane was still an effective member of the roster. So I don't know. Yeah, the gimmick faltered, but at least Kane stayed relevant enough. But the gimmick that I feel has lasted way too long and is now a detriment to this person or these people's lives and livelihood is the Hardy Boys. So the Hardy Boys have been the Hardy Boys for years, for way too many years. I get it. They are the Hardy Boys, right? But their gimmick is Team Extreme. That was their whole thing. That's their shtick. And if you go back and watch the Attitude Era, they were incredible. But their gimmick was Jeff Hardy was this high-flying special act, right? He was always flipping, jumping, tossing his body into everybody. And then Matt Hardy was sort of the grounded one where he did more ground-based moves. I think he only jumped off the second turnbuckle for whatever reason. That was his shtick. He had to balance out his brother. And they've been running that gimmick for literally decades. And now that they're in AEW, I heard I heard reports that Matt and Jeff are feeling underused and they can't, they feel like they're not producing as much as they'd like and they can do so much more. And someone asked, do any of you really want to see Matt and Jeff Hardy do the same thing in 2023 that they were doing back in like 2000? And the truth is no. They're both way too old for this gimmick. And maybe age isn't the thing, but it does play a factor. Like Jeff can't do the things that he used to do all the time. And it's becoming a problem now. Like he shouldn't be doing that. And Matt Hardy has many physical ailments that prevent him from doing a ton of stuff. So they're not moving as gingerly as they used to, which is their whole gimmick, was that they were fast, that they were, extreme, that they were jumping all over, and they're just old now. They can't do that. Jeff is a recovering addict and alcoholic. Matt has back problems. Matt is literally broken Matt Hardy now. So I was sitting on my couch thinking, like, what could the Hardys do to reinvent themselves? And I'm going to be honest with you. I got nothing. I couldn't figure anything out. The one thing I did think, which would be, I don't know, a cool avenue to explore creatively, at least to, talk through it, is what if Matt became broken Matt, but not mentally, physically, where he was truly broken. He's like, my back isn't great. But because of that, every opponent I have has to feel my pain. So then he becomes like a joint manipulation guy. Like he's always setting up back maneuvers. He's, doing body slams. He's just dropping everybody on their backs, and he's doing bear hugs, and he gets 2 or 3 holds that really affect the back, and he just inflicts that pain on his opponents. And that would allow him to work a little slower, work stiff, quote unquote stiff, where he's doing more wrestling and more holds and, putting his old man strength to good use. And it would turn him heel because he would be inflicting this damage on people for no other reason than he's upset that his body has given out on him. Right. And he's like, well, to lash out at the world, I'm going to make everyone feel this broken pain that I have. That's just one thing I came up with. I thought it would be interesting to have Matt go on this journey of him trying to heal himself both physically and mentally, but it starts off with him, in denial. Maybe he goes through like all the stages of grief or something. Could be interesting. Now for Jeff, I am very confused at what Jeff could do because his whole identity is flipping off of stuff. And honestly, the older you get, the less you can do that. You can't just keep chucking your body off the top rope. But I got nothing for Jeff, honestly, because I don't know what his moveset is without all that jumping. He's not the same, like he's not a big buff guy who could just throw people around. So his whole shtick was, I'm going to throw myself around. So I leave that to you guys. What do you think would be an interesting angle or a gimmick for Jeff Hardy to explore now that maybe he shouldn't be doing a whole lot of jumping? Let me know in the comments. Also, let me know in the comments who you think has a gimmick that has lasted way too long, whether it be today or in the past. Drop it in the comments on my YouTube page. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate you. This has been the Wrestling Podcast. Like and subscribe and tell a friend, and don't you ever forget,
I'm your friend, but if I ever see you in the ring, I can beat you. Don't you know? Yeah, yeah, yeah.